Every year here in the UK at 11 o'clock in the morning on the 11th day of the 11th month, we commemorate the end of the First World War. It was a shocking, traumatic event in human history, probably the low point of human history in many ways. No one had ever seen that kind of industrialized, mechanized slaughter before. We saw a little glimpse of it in the American Civil War with the arrival of the Gatling gun and more advanced high explosives, and the carnage then was shocking, but that was as nothing compared to the carnage of the First World War, where 37 million people were injured or killed, 17 million of them killed, 7 million of them civilians. It was like the world had gone mad. And a woman in America, Moina Michael, was captivated by a line of a poem by a Canadian soldier called John McCrae, where he talked about the poppies flowering in Flanders fields and basically passing the torch of responsibility to those who were not on that battlefield to remember those who were and those who died. And of course, the poppy became a great symbol, and Moina Michael, she took it on herself to wear a poppy every Armistice Day to commemorate the courage of those who'd lost their lives. And poppies are a good symbol for that. Poppy seeds lie in the soil dormant, and if that soil is disturbed in the springtime, that's the trigger for them to bloom and germinate. And during the First World War, because of the disturbance of the earth from shells and mining and digging trenches and foxholes, poppies were blooming in the middle of carnage, and the beautiful bright red flowers came to symbolize the tragic red blood that was seeping into the soil of Flanders, which is a part of what we now call Belgium. And there is a contract between any society and those who are willing to defend its borders. And if we look at, say, the Second World War, it does seem legitimate to say without the fighting and without the death and destruction, we would have had a completely different world that would have been a far worse place to live in than the world that we live in now. Hitler did need to be stopped. So First World War, Second World War, it was easy to stop and take a moment of silence to commemorate the bravery of people who defended us, to give thanks to God for the freedom that they earned on our behalf, and to give thanks to the Lord that we have the life that we do, and recognizing that that came at a cost of courage, of lives cut short, of people who came home maimed and unable to work or even function normally. And it was right to commemorate those things, and it was necessary that we were reminded so that we were grateful. It's a sad thing, but courage comes to the fore in wartime. Perhaps some of the greatest stories from either soldiers or civilians of courage in the face of danger do come from the scene of war. Whether that is soldiers' stories or whether that's stories like The Hiding Place, the story of the Ten Boom family in Haarlem in the Netherlands, who hid Jews who were running from the Nazis. I've actually been in their shop and stood in the hidey hole that they created to keep those Jews from being slaughtered by the Nazis. That's incredible courage. And growing up as a young boy, I was full with questions about, would I have that kind of courage? Would I stand under pressure? Am I brave? Am I a strong person? I think those are very male questions. Certainly, as a man, I can tell you they were questions for me. And often it is in the theatre of war that men have found the answer to those questions. But war itself is a bad thing. And as time has gone on, and certainly in recent decades, that contract between society and the people who defend society has been breached by our leaders. And we've seen men and women sent into conflicts that have no moral basis, no justification. And the travesty of the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, badly executed, badly thought through, unnecessary wars that were nothing to do with justice or freedom and everything to do with valuable resources under the soil of Iraq for sure. How can I celebrate that kind of slaughter? How can I say that that was in my name? It wasn't in my name. In fact, many of us protested vehemently against it, and yet it happened anyway. So it's hard to thank God in any way in church on Sunday for what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, because it's been a disaster and it was unnecessary and it was unjustified and it was based on a lie. But Men and women went into that field of conflict and did suffer and did show courage and have come back with their lives changed physically, psychologically, mentally. And I think Jesus would have empathy for them because he cares. He cares about the brokenhearted, the wounded. But I've found that I've had to change what I think the significance of Remembrance Day is as time has gone by, because I no longer feel that I can wholeheartedly support what's been done. So in the time of reflection, during the minute of silence, and in my prayer during that time, I'm commemorating all men and all women who for any reason have laid down their lives, put themselves in harm's way on behalf of other people. Whether that's people working in disaster areas after famine and flood and earthquake, whether that's people working to bring vaccinations to people who are struggling with the AIDS virus all around them, whether that's people laying down their lives to defend children from gunmen in schools, and whether it is the armed forces who've gone into harm's way, like on Mount Sinjar, and rescued the Yazidi people. I'm willing to give thanks for that courage. And in giving thanks for their courage, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of the example of ultimate courage, of the man who laid down his life for all mankind without committing any kind of violence on anybody else. And through his death, brought the possibility of an abundant life on the earth for me and the guarantee and certainty of an eternity with him. That is something I really can commemorate. So I am going to give thanks for all men and women who've emulated Jesus in any way by putting themselves between other human beings and danger, death, destruction, unrest, all of those things. That I feel I can commemorate with my whole heart.